and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, hey, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that Handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
My name is Mackenzie Puddesy. I'm your moderator today from Actual Tech Media, and this is why passwordless security is the future. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being here today. And since I've already fried a few of our minutes, I'm going to try to jump right in and make sure we get things going on a good pace for you today. My fellow friends and moderators, Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward are here with us on live chat today. And if it's your first EcoCast with me, it's great to meet you. Thank you for being here. And I've got just a few bits of information, and then we're going to get our speakers on out here and get the day rocking and rolling. Here's our mod squad. I'm on the far right, just to put a face to the name. And, other than incredibly valuable information today, I have got some prizes coming your way. Today on the EcoCast, you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards that we'll be giving away to 3 lucky winners here, present and live on the EcoCast. And as mentioned in that housekeeping video this morning, you can find the full T's and C's linked in the Handouts tab if you have any questions about that at all. And without further ado, let's get things going. If you've been on an EcoCast before, you know that we always have a keynote, and I'm very excited to lead a special type of keynote today that will be a polling session about passwordless security. The way this is going to work is that I'll be introducing some major trends and themes in the form of questions, and I'm going to ask all of you in the audience to answer a few polls. This is just to get you thinking and opening up your minds to the idea, the world of passwordless authentication. Alrighty, are you all ready to get this show on the road? So first and foremost, I want to just take a look at what types of authentication methods you're currently using. This could be personal, this could be your enterprise, and obviously I think we all know username and password login. That's some pretty classic stuff, kind of started way back in the 60s. If you've been in this industry a while, you might know that. But looking at things like biometrics, thumbprints, face scanning, single sign-ons, where maybe your Google gets you into YouTube and a whole pantheon of different places without having to do a new sign-on every single time. Multi-factor, when you've got that little code shot by perhaps a text or in an authenticator app, or using kind of security passkeys and that which get downloaded onto a device in a secure manner. Or finally, in a similar sense, your mobile authentication. Is it that your phone basically is your passkey to your life? Because in my case, yes. I have to use my phone for everything. I would be terrified if I lost it, which is a theme that we'll talk about today in terms of, what happens if we're using our phone for mobile authentication and then we lose it, or someone on our team loses a phone. How quickly can we transition them back into all the systems that are needed? All right, just to keep things on time, I'm going to close out this poll and I'm going to show the results. So let's see where you're all at. Definitely a spread. People are kind of using a bit of everything, but looks like in the lead, we definitely have that, good old username and password, as well as multi-factor authentication. So, not actually a high use of biometrics. That's the lowest, which I have another poll about. So I'm curious to get a vibe check, if you will, on where you're at with that. All right, let's keep things going. So which of the following do you believe is the most secure type of authentication? Now, listen, I wanted to put a combination of the above, but I figured you'd all pick that. So I want to make it a little bit more difficult and say, out of just one of these standalone, where's your head at? What do you think would be potentially the safest if you could only rely on one? right? In the lead so far, we've got some MFA going on. Almost half of you are on that camp. I'll give you a few seconds more to kind of think through that. All right, I'm going to pop up these results and see what you thought. So, in the lead, multi-factor or MFA authentication at 40%, biometrics taking up the second, and then the security and passkeys. Looks like mobile authentication and single sign-on are not generally seen as kind of top dogs as a standalone authentication method. Interesting, interesting. All right, let's keep going here. Now, this was actually interesting that you said your lowest use of the standalone was the biometrics. So how open are you and your user base to using biometrics as a required form of authentication? Is this something you're very comfortable with? Perhaps somewhat, you're using it, but it's not required. Is it something you're not so comfortable with? I know there is a lot of hesitancy around giving up your fingerprint, giving up your eyeball, your face. And even though it is happening more and more, on people using their iPhones and Samsungs and different things, it's interesting to see how we can roll that out if we do see it as a form of quite secure authentication. Personally, I'm always looking after my security and data security, but on my phone, I do love a Face ID. It's just so easy. And what's interesting, I've noticed, I'm an Apple user, at least for now, and they've upgraded it so that not only is it scanning your face, but you do have to be looking directly at the camera, so it detects kind of the action of the eye, which is both very cool and slightly spooky at times. So let's see what you've got for results. Not surprising to me, but yeah, people are not very comfortable. 41%, or the majority here, are feeling perhaps like they don't want to use this, or they don't necessarily feel comfortable asking their users, whether it be internally or their customer base, to authenticate in this way. 32, somewhat comfortable. Okay, so people are embracing this, but we're kind of at like a 60-40 here in terms of yes, let's use some biometrics, but only 9% are requiring this there. All right, couple more polls, and then I'm going to have our first presenter get out here. So thanks so far for being interactive. Keep it up. The more you interact, the better. The next question I'm going to pose to you is, when rolling out authentication strategies, how do you rank them in terms of importance? Are you looking at security, convenience, and user experience, security and user experience equally, security first, but user experience is a consideration? Or you're just not sure, still deciding. That's why you're here today. This is a theme we'll look at quite a lot in the presentations coming up, is, how do we balance security and that user experience? We want things to be secure, but at times, if things are so frustrating to use or complicated or time consuming, people will try to either opt out or find ways around them. And so they're not always willing to go through the security steps unless completely forced. And that can also be a little bit frustrating. So, all right, I'm going to throw up these results for you. So, security, definitely consideration. Convenience and user experience, only 1%. That's pretty low. But, we're seeing definitely a mix of security and user experience, and overall security first, but user experience as a consideration being our leading section here in the poll. So great to know, great to think about. And as you take in the presentations today, maybe look at how these solutions are offering what you are looking for. All right, final poll question. Do you believe passwords will ever go away? Our title of the EcoCast today, Why Passwordless Security is the Future. Is it the future? Do you agree? Are you feeling that we'll definitely get rid of passwords one day? Or, is this always going to be something we need a little bit of in terms of authenticating somewhere along the line or somewhere within our strategy. Or maybe you just don't know, honestly. I'm always surprised by what tech brings us. So I have a sense, but it'll be curious to see how things roll out. All right, as it's the final poll, just take maybe 5-10 more seconds, throw in your answers, and then we'll show this result and then get things on our way. Here we go. All right, so 25% of you, one whole quarter, believe that the future is going to be passwordless. Okay, I like it. I like it. About 61% of you, the vast majority, believe we'll always need some form of passwords. It's possible. It's possible. Let's see what comes up today. And no passwords, will always be a part or a form of authentication. 8%, and a few of you are just not sure. All right, I like it. This is good. Seems like you guys have a sense of what's going on, have some firm beliefs. Probably you're working in this sector and you've got a sense of what's going on. But maybe this is new, and that's great. And the last poll I'm going to throw up here is not necessarily about being passwordless, but just what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? Are you looking to make some changes around how you authenticate right away, like within the next 6 months, within the next year, in the next 2 years? Or maybe you're still just gathering information, you're not so sure about this, and this is something you want to learn more about before making decisions. So I will leave that final poll up there for just a second. Hopefully you're all alive, awake, ready to hear from our presenters today. And that said, I am going to leave this final poll and then introduce our next presenter here. So our first presenter of the EcoCast is the team from Keeper, Keeper Security. It's a bit of a short and sweet EcoCast. It's packed with information. We just have 2 presenters today, but both of our presenting teams have 2 guests. So 2 heads are better than 1 is the old adage we're playing into here. 4 industry experts for you in the time of 2 presentations. I'm always in for some efficiency. So let's pick the brains of our presenters here. And please do be active in the chat. You can post some questions and then have those answered a little bit later on. So without further ado, our teams from Keeper Security are going to tell you all about why passwords suck. So please welcome from Keeper, Adrian Julian, Senior Marketing Manager and Demand Gen, as well as Jonathan Padilla, the Solutions Engineer. Adrian, Jonathan, the stage is all yours. Take it away.
Thank you. And hi everyone. My name is Adrian Julian. I work in Keep Your Security's marketing team, and I'm joined today by our very own Jonathan Padilla. I'm sure you've seen him in webinars or demos before, eating spicy salsa or dressed as Bob Ross. But Jonathan is one of Keeper's longest tenured solutions engineers and a respected security engineer in the community. So he's actually perfect for the topic we're going to be talking about today, which is why passwordless security is the future. So I'm pretty sure everybody on this webinar today will say that they hate passwords. They're a pain to use, and remember, billions of them end up on the dark web. Who knows how employees share them around at the office, and they're also the main cause for data breaches. So the future is trending more and more towards a fully end-to-end passwordless authentication process. And this is what we're going to dive into today. So thank you again for joining. Jonathan, I might interrupt you with a few questions, but the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Adrian. Thanks for that introduction. And yeah, passwords do suck, right? Especially when I create them. I just, you leave me to my own devices like, oh God, I got to create a new password. I'm gonna reuse one that I think is long and strong, but maybe add an extra character or change something up, or just look at my desk and I see a piece of extra bubble gum and base it off of that. It's oh man, that's so these passwords that I create, I don't really trust so much. So let's start understanding that. I start understanding that, oh man, a lot of these breaches are done by credentials because a lot of passwords are weak and reused and not strong. So we start understanding that cybersecurity starts with password security. So passwordless security is the future. And let's dive into that. Let's dive into that topic today. And let's start with this. Let's start with this over here. Let me get over to my slides over here. Let's see. Passwords do suck, right? 11 hours are wasted every year resetting passwords, right, per person. Let's think about that. 11 hours. A lot of people forget their passwords. They're not using a password manager per se to store their passwords and not have to remember them and get back access to them. And here they are. They're forgetting their password. So you have what? 11 hours wasted of help desk resetting passwords for people and individuals. So you think about that. Think about that. That's time is money. So now let's think about this. 50% of all help desk calls are password related. Do I dare say 50% of all help desk personnel are just resetting passwords? No joke. But think about that. Think about how reactive that is. And so on average, let's just think about average salaries. On average, that's an average cost of approximately $70 for one password reset. Let's move on. That's one reason passwords suck. They cost us money. So multi-factor. Let's look at that MFA conundrum. MFA is cool. Multi-factor is cool. I have it all over the place. TOTP, my security key, all sorts of stuff. And MFA can block over 99% of account compromise attacks. It could, but however, why is it? Why is it that, let's say, look at this, only 28% of Microsoft users have MFA on them? I have it on mine. I love it. It makes it easier, but users don't like extra security steps. It's like, oh my God, I just put in my username and password. Now I got to put it in a 2FA. And they find that annoying, although that is a nice security step to ensure that is you.
And they'll use their cell phone too for that generally, which is annoying.
Right. Absolutely. Their cell phone. It's like, and that's a very, Adrian, I love that, because this is a topic I want to bring up again later. So you have organizations that do integrate into their IDP stack, but all of a sudden they have to implement 2FA, and all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, we don't want people bringing their personal devices for this. Oh man, this states that we have to buy company devices. There goes that cost again. And so that's some of the percentage of why, they don't have it turned on their identity providers, not just Microsoft. It's not just Microsoft. So, MFA is a must, but it's like painful. It's very painful. So how do we get past all this painfulness? How do we make this easy? Let's keep on looking. So let's look at the roadmap to a passwordless future. All right, not passwords. What are we going to utilize, Jonathan? What? No passwords. So what are we going to do? Biometrics. Many devices today support biometrics. My phone right here got a nice little biometric screen I could touch, or a pad, or my laptop, desktop has biometrics. Passkeys, we're going to be touching on passkeys, and that's headed down the pipe very quickly. I'm sure many of you have encountered these passkey creations and probably wondered, where are you supposed to store them? How are you supposed to utilize them? How are you supposed to share them across shared accounts? Single sign-on, not like that. A lot of us have an identity provider such as Microsoft, Okta, Microsoft Entra, Okta, JumpCloud, OneLogin, et cetera. That makes a nice seamless entrance process into other applications that do support single sign-on. And this is a nice, better security and user experience for the end user. It's seamless. I've logged into here. I'm automatically going to go there. Ooh, all I have to do is touch here, and I'm automatically going to log in. I don't have to remember a password. That was pretty easy. And that's nice, but let's think about something. Legacy systems are considered the main barrier for passwordless authentication adoption. But why? Let's talk about legacy identity providers that don't support, say, single sign-on, number one. Number two, legacy devices that don't have biometrics or means for biometrics, right? Legacy systems. Let's move on. Passkeys. Let's talk about these passkeys. These are pretty cool. I love it. I love these passkeys. So a nice seamless authentication experience. They are more secure than passwords, and they're easier to use. And we'll see how and why. And it's a cryptographic key that can get utilized without entering a 2FA code, that annoying 2FA code, or the password. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, I got a username password 2FA code. That annoying process. So that's cool. It's a cryptographic key that is used to log in without having to do those processes. Passkeys are growing in popularity as you log into websites such as, recently I went into GitHub And I'm excited to show this today too. Recently, I logged into GitHub and I had to set up a passkey. And I'm like, oh man, where am I supposed to store this? I was utilizing my device. And I'm like, and I was quite surprised where I stored it. And now I'm going to show you this in a little bit. But these passkeys can be annoying as well, such as the 2 factors. And why? Well, in our organization, we have shared accounts, GitHub accounts, all sorts of accounts that have 2FA. Remember that how 2FA experience, like, hey man, how are we supposed to share this GitHub account that has 2-factor on it? Jonathan's the one that's standing in his phone, but I need to use that credential and I need to reach out to him all the time to get that 2-factor code. I could say the same thing with passkeys, right? Same thing with passkeys. We're going to understand it as well. But, Google will make passkeys a default login here in the near future. And it's already getting pushed down the pipe. So let's look at this. Challenges with passkeys at the workplace, as I mentioned already previously, right? Passkeys that are stored in platforms, Google, Apple, they can't easily be shared to, say, users or teams. Like, I want to share this key. It's like saying, hey, I want to share this 2FA that's on my phone, or that I shared a key that's on my phone. And how am I supposed to how am I supposed to do that? And think about that. Not every system and application supports passkeys. So, okay, all right, cool. The ones that do support passkeys, that's fantastic. Here we are going towards that passwordless future. But what about the ones that don't support passkeys? Single sign-on, as we all know today, SSO. Many applications out there integrate with single sign-on providers in their stacks again, such as Azure. And this can reduce password fatigue, as a user already has an identity username password with Azure. And some login entrances with Azure, rather they're using security keys, touch, 2FA, Microsoft Authenticator. Ease of use, right? Increased productivity. Users like that. It's like, oh, wow, I seamlessly logged into Microsoft Entra Office 365 and boom, I'm seamlessly getting authenticated to this other application, this web application that we're utilizing. This will minimize IT help desk tickets. Right? That's nice. It's, the user is not going to forget that single source of username or password that they're utilizing all the time. Right? When you have multiple ones, you start forgetting. It's like, oh, I have like 5 of them now. I'm forgetting like this first one that I utilize in Azure. And it simplifies compliances, right? That's beautiful. But let's keep on looking at that. SSO is great, but it does not cover everything. Not all applications integrate with single sign-on. There's hundreds of thousands of applications and native cloud applications out there that do support it, and there's thousands that don't. Especially those legacy SSO solutions, they're there, but nothing integrates with those legacy SSO solutions. It's like, oh man, so what was the point of this? And last but not least, to me, single sign-on can represent a single point of failure. Okay, this one Azure identity, my one Azure identity gets breached. I integrated single sign-on into that one identity, and now everything's breached. And so that's a single point of failure. I just really don't like that. I really don't like that. So now let's move on. Let's look at this. SSO plus passkeys plus what equals a passwordless future. Because Jonathan, you just told me not everything integrates with SSO, not everything integrates with passkeys. The same thing goes with biometrics. Not everything integrates with biometrics. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we still got a plethora of passwords that we need to handle and utilize. What's the solution? Well, the solution's Keeper. Let's look at that. SSO plus passkeys plus Keeper. For those of you who got it right, fantastic. Pat yourselves on the back. I already knew the answer, so I'm going to pat myself on the back anyway. That equals a passwordless future. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's dive into it real quick. It's just going to take a moment to take a look at that. Let's dive into that. So Keeper does integrate into a single sign-on identity provider stack. It doesn't matter who you're utilizing. We integrate with any IDP SSO. It's just SAML 2.0. Again, SSO providers such as Microsoft Entra, Okta, Jump Cloud, OneLogin, et cetera, et cetera. So that's cool, having that seamless use of your identity. Keeper Password Manager. So naturally, our solution can store usernames and passwords that get utilized on web application websites and desktop applications. Last but not least, this Keeper browser extension. We need the experience to be easy, seamless. We don't need to fall in the conundrums of MFA conundrum. Like, oh man, this is just an annoyance, this extra two-factor, this extra thing I need to do. We're going to understand how Keeper browser extension or the Keeper platform in general can assist and fill the gap for this passwordless future and ease of use to your users. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's take a look. Let's actually take a look at how this works real quick. Something very easy to understand and see. We're going to go to my Keeper Password Manager digital vault over here. And I'm already on this record. And this is a GitHub record that I told you about earlier that I used to utilize my username and password against, but all of a sudden, while I was logging in, as websites and applications are increasing the passkey adoption, I was forced to create a passkey. Last but not least, prior to my passkey, I did have 2FA on that account. And this is nice. That's right here in the record. Why is this nice? Well, it's nice for many reasons. Rather, I'm going to use it for myself, or now I need to share this information to someone else to utilize. Let's take a look at that experience, and let's take a look at that experience of that passwordless future. Let's come over here. Let's come over here real quick. Cool. And over here, I want to be expedient. We have this Keeper browser extension up here, and I want to show a nice seamless login here. I'm just log out of it real quick and show that this platform does integrate with single sign-on for users to easily and seamlessly utilize this platform to fill that passwordless future. I'm just going to select my single sign-on account. I've already authenticated today. I don't want to get challenged again. Hey, please provide your username and password again. No, I've already authenticated today. So that was seamless for me. Now, real quick, before we proceed, I do want to click on this browser extension, and then I want to move past this real quick because I told you I shared this credential. So let's take a look at this shared credential. I shared to the user. Oh, look at that. Now, all of a sudden, right, I don't have this 2FA or this passkey on my device or on my phone that this user has to reach out to me for, and somehow I need to share it. It's right here in the record. They have full access to it. TOTP codes, passkey, and username and password in a secure fashion. Without further ado, let's look at the end user experience of utilizing this information easily and seamlessly to log in into any website or application. And in this instance, I just want to be natural with my day. I like to type in where I'm going. I could use my own bookmarks, as you saw there, that GitHub icon with my frequently visited sites. However you want to work, just be natural. All right, cool. Here we are at the forefront of this. And I have a couple of options to log in. I could utilize username or password to get filled in, get logged in, and provide 2FA. And this is what's getting presented here, again, showing the information. But let's look at a quick, easy, seamless, passwordless future utilizing passkeys, a shared passkey. Easily and seamlessly on my web browser, just utilizing the Keeper Password Manager as it stores that information without my organization having to pay into a device or devices to store these passkeys and then somehow now figure out how we're going to share them. I like that. I like that decreased cost in my operations. I like that I don't have to worry about BYOD.
One question that we hear often, Jonathan, is are passkeys essentially like MFA?
Passkeys contain all the information needed and required, the cryptographic key required, all the information required for that user to log into that website or application. So it's like everything is melded into one.
Right. So it's like a complex password that has an MFA component.
Exactly. It's like complex username, password, MFA jammed into a cryptographic key for the user to get logged in.
Yeah, were you going to show something else? Sorry.
No, apologies. I was seeing if there was any more questions to follow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll stop you again.
So yeah, absolutely. So that was me utilizing simplistically a passkey to get logged in. Now let's look at the other ladder. Let's look at the other ladder real quick. You know, what if that website, web application doesn't utilize passkeys? Other options again is utilizing username and password. Nice, long, strong username and password as Keeper likes to store username and passwords and set long, strong usernames and passwords. In this instance, I could use a passkey as 2FA as well. So those are options as well, utilizing a passkey as 2FA. Or continuing on with my TOTP. All right, that's nice. Again, that shared TOTP, that MFA that could and can block over 99% of attacks. Right, there it is, being utilized easily and seamlessly without me looking at the device, going down, trying to type it in, running out of time typing it in, or me reaching out to a user, trying to get that code from them and trying to utilize that code before it times out. That was nice, easy, seamless, quick, no extra steps, just utilizing the Keeper browser extension. I'll sign out from there. And that is how you can get to a passwordless future, by utilizing a platform such as Keeper's EPM to bring the gap together. You have websites that have usernames and passwords, two-factor, websites that support SSO, websites that support passkeys. Keeper can now store the information for you to utilize easily and seamlessly across sites, across different devices, not just your desktop. You can move to your cell phone. You can move to another device. You can share with other people. They can use multiple devices to easily and seamlessly log in with the multiple login types that are currently available. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point.
All right. Yeah, no, thank you, Jonathan. That was really cool. And I think, you know, from what we've seen is that a lot of people have heard about passkeys, but not everyone is familiar with them. So this is great to go over that. Like you said, Google has announced that they'll use passkeys in the near future. So this is where the industry is trending right now. But based on your experience, do you think that passkeys will get adopted quickly, or is it going to take a little bit of time?
I think with the right platform, to store the information, it can get adopted quickly, right? Because right now it's going to be too disparate, too sporadic. A lot of devices, a lot of platforms storing them. I think as we unify the use of them and how they get utilized, the adoption will increase. But this stated, rather, the adoption increases, right? There's two differences between adoption and what's the industry standard, right? What's getting pushed out there,
right? And I think
our company's going to adapt to that, right? They're going to have to,
right?
They're going to have to. So they're going to be forced to adopt.
Right. And one of the main challenges right now is that it can be complex for employees to share passkeys. And this is where using a password manager like Keeper helps facilitate that. So yeah, that was a great point.
Absolutely, right. Just like the 2FA code back then, people were wondering, how are we supposed to handle this? How are we supposed to share this login entrance with our team now?
Right.
Right. Now here we are with the passkeys, and our platform can easily handle that.
Yeah. And then, so when you were sharing your screen earlier, so you were using the Keeper browser extension for autofill. A question that we often get is, are browser-based password managers safe, or are they good enough?
I would say they're not good enough. They're not good enough, especially once they're compromised. You think about a browser, how they store the information, how it's accessed. When I'm using my browser, I'm not forced to authenticate to access the information. When my device gets compromised, I mean, it's a hot mess. It's not a very secure way to store the information.
Right. And it can be challenging to share those credentials as well.
Right. We got people sharing profiles across browser profiles across multiple user environments. I mean, it just becomes a hot mess. The challenges and the hoops that people have to go through to share that information. You see the dollar signs go up, how much time you've wasted trying to come up with your own solution and support your own solution.
Right. And then, so you were talking about SSO as well, and you kind of talked about the security gaps. Can you go over this one more time, just like what type of security risks lie with SSO?
Yeah, so security. So I think about that. I take a step back into the past, and I'm trying to remember when it was okay to have one username and password for everything. Right? Single sign-on. Right? SSO gets compromised. That's a gap right there. Right? One single point of failure. Number two, what else do we have going on as far as single sign-on? Your IDP failure. If your SSO is not functioning very well, what are your backup methods to get into that application or website, for example? Not all websites do or applications do support SSO. So there we go. Or 2FA or passkeys. So what are we going to do to fill that gap again? Get to that passwordless future. So let me say it like this. Of course, Keeper, for example, a website or an application that has no passkeys or multi-factor. Well, where is that passwordless future, John? Because there is a password to it. Of course, there is. Using Keeper, you can set a nice, long, strong password for that entrance, but you're never directly utilizing it. It's hands off. It's seamless. Right. It's passwordless to the user. Keeper is handling that. And since you don't have to know what the username or password is, and Keeper's handling that, you can set 32, 42 character passwords. Right? Increasing that strength, right? The complexity of that password, the complexity and the security of it from getting breached, easily getting breached.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. I think we're going to run out of time. So thank you for having us. And yeah, if you'd like to learn more about Keeper, we can set you up with a free 1-year personal plan. If you'd like to sign up for a demo, maybe you'll be lucky enough to do it with Jonathan. But yeah, head over to keepersecurity.com and we'll be in touch from there. But thank you again. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Adrian and Jonathan. That was awesome. Super animated. I really enjoyed how practical and frank the presentation was. Logins, authentications, and passwords are definitely part of our daily lives, and indeed they can suck. So what about you in the audience? Do you feel that passwords suck, or do you have some fond feelings? I won't put a poll up for that one, but I do have a poll question for you all. We'd love to get your feedback on any additional resources that you would like to explore from Keeper. Your feedback is mega valuable. You're basically going to get exactly what you asked for here. So please take a moment to answer the poll. I know a lot of questions came in. Not all of them got answered, so do not fret. The team from Keeper will either reach out on live chat here today or follow up after today's event and make sure you get the answers to all of your questions. Some interesting stuff about passkeys and mobile devices and different options there. So don't worry, they will follow up with you. If you do want to learn more right away, go to the handout tab and click the link for the datasheet Keeper Privileged Access Management. This is covering the next-gen Zero Trust and Zero Knowledge Privileged Access Management, or PAM solution. It's a great 2-pager PDF with a summary of the Keeper solution. And as mentioned, if you do want to take a year test drive of the Keeper platform, reach out to Keeper directly, and you can definitely do that as well. This will be a perfect way to follow up on the conversation we just had with Adrian and Jonathan. Definitely worth a read. I'd say go check that out now. All right, I'm going to close out this poll and give away our first prize. This is a $300 Amazon gift card to give away. And just a quick reminder, you must be present at the webinar to win. So hopefully you're out there. The first lucky winner is Juan Ceja from Utah. Juan, congratulations. And we'll be in touch about how to claim your prize after the presentation today. Next up in today's run of experts is Duo. Today we have both Richard Archdeacon, the advisory CISO from EMIR, and Josh Green, lead technologist, also from the region, EMIR. Richard and Josh are going to tell us why you can't fish an empty pond. And we'll be speaking both about security and also that user experience we discussed in the keynote earlier today, and how Duo does take care of both aspects of this problem. So let's get things going. Richard, Josh, take it away. The floor is yours, you two.
Good afternoon, and welcome to a discussion on passwordless as being the essential next step in the zero trust journey. I'm joined by my colleague Josh Green, who's the lead technologist here with us at Geo covering EMEA. We're going to be talking about the whole concept of zero trust, but also passwordless. How do they come together in order to secure the organization and help the user? So Josh, let's just refresh on a few of the basic concepts around zero trust that we follow within Duo.
Yeah, absolutely. Zero trust is a big area. That's why we always like to talk about the fact that there's no such thing as a zero trust. You can't buy one on a shelf. And Duo really focuses on one particular aspect of it, which is user interaction with systems and also the devices that they're using to perform that interaction. Collectively, we call that the workforce. And it breaks down into really three pillars for us. One is trusted users, which is really identity focused, right? I need to establish who you are before I let you into anything because it's table stakes. If I can't figure out who's coming into my stuff, I definitely shouldn't let that entity in, right? But we obviously learned pretty early on, through all the breaches that have happened in the last number of decades, that that's not quite enough either, though, because if the device that the user brings with them is not trustworthy or if it's compromised in some way and we're unable to verify that, then even a user of confirmed identity shouldn't be allowed in. And that was a lesson that was probably first taught, drastically to us all the way back in 2013 with the Target breach, where it was in fact an authorized user trying to do an authorized thing with a compromised device. But that also taught us a third lesson, which is just as critical as the other two, which is that even if you've got an authorized user, even if you have a potentially trustworthy device, a one-size-fits-all policy for checking that really isn't good enough because it's going to be undoubtedly too strict for certain low-risk activities and block users from doing things that just makes their lives harder. And it's going to be not strict enough for the really sensitive things we want to stop people from doing. And so the real key is to put this level of granularity of policy and control at the application level so that we can protect any application individually. And really that takes the earlier concept of segmentation and then micro-segmentation to its logical conclusion, which is that every application can act as its own segment of the network. And so that's really what we're talking about in our area when we're talking about zero trust for the workforce. Richard?
So that's ensuring that we have trusted access to our applications and our resources based on three areas really of control: user, device, and application. I think it's very important, Josh, you mentioned the importance of users, because making it easy for users is going to be absolutely critical going forward. We don't want to burden a user with a lot more difficulty in accessing their resources, because after all, they come to work to do their job, not to do security. So ease of use for the user is really important when they authenticate.
Absolutely. And we see so many, if you're designing a security solution, if you've said to yourself, well, in designing my security policy, user experience is just going to have to be a casualty of security, you're going down the wrong path. We've done a lot of other talks in the past about how that takes you down an avenue where, any user with a credit card and a deadline becomes really dangerous at that point if the user experience is bad. And that's something we really want to avoid. The two need to go hand in hand.
Right, so this approach gives us the never trust, always verify basis, the core for going forward. But now let's just talk a little bit about some of the issues around passwords and why we need to look at the whole issue of passwords. I think you've got some interesting numbers here about passwords and some of the issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a funny one because, within an organization, it's really surprising to realize how much time, and of course, time being money, how much money is devoted to servicing the password, the ever-present password. And, LastPass did some research, and, it depends on whose research you look at. Sometimes this number is really, really high, like 190. But even on the low end, you're looking at, research showing people with 50, 60, 70 passwords. And, in an ideal world, right, these people are actually using 50, 60, 70 unique passwords that are strong, that have 16 characters. They definitely don't use them on other websites, except that's not true, right? Research consistently shows, the Instagram breach was one of the more notable ones, that even in online services, the most common password breached was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. and they get reused all over the place. And, so you go up, if you went up to somebody, right, and you were just relying on, their own word for it and said, hey, would you like to get hacked today? No one you approached on the street would say no. Yes, I'd really love to get hacked today. They're all going to say no. But the reality is how far they're willing to go to not get hacked. Sadly, not very far, right? And so as a result, third statistic there, 81% of breaches still involve weak or stolen credentials. And so, despite, 30 years now of education on password strength and not reusing them and all that stuff, it hasn't solved the problem. And so whenever that happens, they say the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's time to move on from passwords.
I can very much see that whole issue of cost as well. It's always said that one of the biggest issues after the summer holidays or after a long bank holiday weekend, when people have had time away from work, password resets just rocket up as part of the help desk's tasks. So that's always that peak. But I think you're also identifying there a couple of points. One is that whole issue of user experience. If we make it hard, then we will make it less secure. And also the relevance of this threat vector, this vulnerability, which can be exploited by hackers really very successfully in the past. So we developed this concept of zero trust with those three pillars, but we still have this issue around passwords during perhaps the authentication process or during part of the user interaction. So we're checking the devices, segmenting access to applications, but we still got the users. So the two seem to come together, this whole idea of passwords, zero trust, and passwordless. So what are some of the issues around passwords or how we go forward with passwords going forward?
Yeah, so I mean, the other problem that we see is that obviously up until now, it's been the only way to get you access to lots of different things from any device. And the other challenge that you have there is obviously what were you going to give users back in the day to do strong authentication, right? In the beginning, you had to give them a hard token, right? And obviously the RSA breach in 2011 revealed why that was not an airtight strategy. And even after that, though, you had soft tokens, but there were some issues with the fact that they stored their keys on the hard drive, and biometrics was really not a big thing, right? For years, different laptop manufacturers tried to put those little finger scanners on the front of the machine, and adoption was just really not that good. And then all of a sudden, the smartphone came along. And now all of a sudden, a huge percentage of the population has a really good fingerprint or face scanner in their palm all the time. So there's been a huge advance in terms of what we can do in terms of technology as an alternative to the password that doesn't require users to adopt new devices, right? They can use the devices they already have. And also, of course, standards have evolved around that. It's no longer one proprietary fingerprint reader protocol here, one proprietary fingerprint reader protocol there. Things like the FIDO standards have really unified how we communicate those credentials to third parties, and I think that makes it a lot easier.
So I think we've got two elements there: ease of use and the ability to use some sort of attributes such as a fingerprint, thumbprint, or fingerprint on a device that you have with you. And let's face it, people tend not to lose their smartphones; they tend to have them with them the whole time. So you don't have a separate item; it's always with them. And also the standards which enable us to become far more open in terms of how we approach this kind of solution. But it strikes me that what we're doing is improving security and making it far easier for the users. And surely that's a win-win for security, where traditionally we were seen as being blockers, but now we're enablers. Totally. Now we're making life so much simpler.
Yep. And it's also important to sort of note that we're really changing the threat model here, right? Because you might say to yourself, well, on my phone, I still have a PIN, right? Every time, you go to do a biometric authentication on your phone, if you can't get it to work, you can still use your PIN. Isn't that the same problem? And it's not. And that's what's really great about this, is that PIN is really only valid on your device. And that's unlocking an encryption key that then gets used to authenticate you. Maybe it's a certificate, maybe it's just a key, whatever it is, to authenticate you to some third party. You're not sending that PIN across the internet to some third party service who may have really bad security. You're not sharing it with other, with other companies or anything like that. It's only valid locally on the device. And so we've changed from a model where I've sent potentially the same really bad password to a lot of websites, and I'm just waiting for the one with the worst security to get breached and make my life a nightmare. And we've changed to a world in which I'm not sending that information anywhere. All I'm doing is making a cryptographic exchange with these other sites. And so it really changes the security model. And of course, because you've already got that phone in your pocket, it makes the usability for the end user so much better.
And again, combining it with those three elements of zero trust, we have the segmentation, which of course reduces any lateral movement should there be a breach. And also we've got the device trust as well, so we can make sure that a device is well trusted. But what are the challenges going forward on passwordless as we see them?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's not all roses and happy happy times. If it were that easy, right, we would have had it years ago. I mean, the FIDO standard has been around for quite some time. Biometric readers have been around for years now. Why don't we all have passwordless already? And there's a couple of problems. One is, how do we define the term passwordless? It's already a buzzword, but it doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. Some organizations are referring to passwordless as simply what we would have maybe called password vaulting in the privileged access management space, where the password exists, but we're hiding it from the end user, and we're relying on biometrics or passwordless to get them into the vault, and then the vault sends the password to a target system. Well, that solves the user getting phished, which is an important thing, but it doesn't solve man-in-the-middle attacks. It doesn't solve pass the hash. It doesn't solve the password database itself being breached in some way. So it's a very different definition, and we need to sort of come to some kind of an agreement in the market of what really is passwordless and what isn't. Also, environments change all the time. So IT environments that are mostly cloud focused already, that are using cloud applications, are one use case that's very, very easy to address. If on the other hand, you're a large multinational bank that has an IBM System 390 in the basement, convincing it not to take a password is a different challenge, right? And so we need to look at how we address that journey and make it not only easy for the users, but also not too painful for the administrative team. And of course, not all biometric technology is created equal, right? It's still a relatively new technology. And so we need to make sure that the end user experience is at least no harder than the passwords they're already used to.
So we're getting the technology, but we still have if our better expressions, back-end technology, which is still complex. So how do we make it work within those environments? But also we now have something which will make it easy for the users and their experience. So what would a passwordless solution start to look like for a very top level?
Sure. So this is the current situation, right? We've got username, password, and MFA in most cases, right? And on each different application, you probably have a different password and potentially even different MFA across an entire suite of applications. And users are used to it because we've trained them, and humans are adaptable, and we can get used to pretty much anything, but it's not a great user experience, right? We all recognize that. And even the best MFA, if you're challenged with it too often, becomes really onerous because you're like, I haven't moved. I'm sitting here at my computer. Nothing has changed. Why do I have to keep doing this, right? So how do we progress from there? Well, we could do this, right? We could have passwordless on all of these different sites, and every time you go to a new site, you register for passwordless, and then you've got it all set up on your phone. But in reality, that doesn't quite solve the problem because it doesn't really make it less onerous if you've got to enroll 3 separate times to try to do what you're trying to do. We need something that's actually cross-platform. And for that, we can look to a technology that actually already exists. Single sign-on, right? And this is a great example of something that did the job of ease of use and security so well that most people don't even consider it a security tool. They think of it as a convenience tool. I log in and I can get all my applications without having to put my password in again. Well, why was that really created though? Because we didn't want people sending different passwords all the way to all these different companies and websites on the internet, and then ending up in a situation where our security was only as good as the worst security on the website that you gave that password to. We wanted to bring centralized control, right? One single password that we manage, that we can make sure you reset, and that if you need to change it by calling the help desk, we only need to do it in one place. And then we establish these trust relationships with the third-party websites so that we identify with them cryptographically instead of sending that password out over the internet. In reality, it's almost the entire passwordless job done for us. We just need to take it one password further. And that's where passwordless can really come in with single sign-on in concert so that we enroll for passwordless once, we do our passwordless authentication, and from then on, we forget about what other applications we're accessing. As an end user, we don't have to think about it. We don't have to care. We're just single signed on, right? And that gets us almost all the way there in terms of passwordless. But this is where that zero trust part comes in. We can't just stop there because it's not, as we remember from those 3 pillars, that's only pillar number 1. We're not done yet, right? So we need to think about that device. Well, if I'm authenticating on a passwordless device, but the passwordless device is jailbroken and out of date, is that necessarily trustworthy? Or could somebody have hacked it and stolen the key? We wouldn't know unless we're looking at the device trustworthiness, right? And then can we just walk away once we've logged you into that application and say, job done, good to go? We could, but we shouldn't, right? We should have continuous risk detection with policies that are specific to each application, because what we might allow on application 1, we might not want on application 3. And so we need to be watching what's going on and try to figure out, for example, I authenticated you and I let you remember yourself for 8 hours and not have to do authentication again. But now all of a sudden you've changed locations or you've changed your network state. Maybe that's cause for me doing a step up of authentication or re-authenticating you, right? And so when you bring all of those together, now you have a really good 3-pillar zero trust solution. Richard,
So I think what's interesting, Josh, is if you've assumed MFA. I think there's a lot of organizations that still haven't done that. So perhaps as a first step, they should look at the zero trust approach, which brings in the authentication, but then gives you the backup security of device trust, which I think is absolutely critical, because by definition, when you have somebody who's authenticated through MFA, you're raising the level of trust. You therefore are assuming less risk. So if they're on a compromised device, then that's going to be a problem anyway. You're just letting a trusted person through the front door, and we don't want to do that. We can limit that with the segmentation, but you still don't want to get them through the front door. Mm-hmm. But then we also bring on the passwordless and the SSO type solution, which start to do, as I see it, one is reduce that risk of the password being forgotten, all those issues we were talking about, but also using single sign-on enables us to limit the risk of any password getting lost on a third-party site or whatever it is you were saying, mm-hmm. because we're controlling access. So we've got a very controlled approach, which is dependent upon the user not only authenticating, but passing the device trust, and the user, the behavioral modeling as well. Is this person logging in from the normal location at the normal time, or is there some kind of strange activity that we've got going on? But what I think is really interesting is how much easier we have now made it for the user, and how much more secure we've made it for the business, because this user now doesn't have to worry about passwords so much. There'll be issues around setting up passwordless, which we'll have to handle that in the first instance. But thereafter, all those password changes could well disappear because they're just authenticating straight away without that passwordless, using some kind of biometric capability. They're going through their single sign-on interface, which then allows them to go and get all those access all at once. Makes it a lot simpler, a lot easier to use, and a lot more secure, not only at the first instance of entry into the environment and the use of the application or the resource, but also on an ongoing basis by looking at how that access is being used on a continual kind of monitoring. So I think we're achieving two things there: ease of use, better security.
Yeah, and I think I always like to remind folks, because we always get excited, especially in our industry, of, oh, look at all the things I can stop. And there's definitely going to be attacks that you can stop with this, but also think about what you could allow, right? We talked about the things that could go wrong that might cause you to do a step-up authentication or require a biometric or require MFA. But imagine a user's in lockdown, hypothetical situation, where they're on the same device, they haven't moved all day, their behavior is consistent with the pattern of how they do their job every day. I could actually let them authenticate once in the morning and then never bother them for the rest of the day as long as those parameters don't change. Think about that user experience of a user not being bothered with any authentication for the rest of the day as long as all the patterns of things we're concerned about stay consistent. So there's also an opportunity to allow things before that we haven't been able to allow, and users tend to love that. And why would a user go, pull their trusty credit card out and go sign up for some shadow IT application if the one they're authorized to use for work is just so much easier to get into and use? They probably wouldn't, right? And so that's another great objective we can achieve here. So what we're looking for sort of in the future going forward, I mean, so that's sort of where we're at right now. The challenges as we look ahead, because we want to be, honest about those, is that, older things, thick clients, mainframes, things like that, right? We want to be able to get, embedded browsers and other forms of authentication in there. Desktop logons, right? It would be really cool if when you logged into that machine in the morning, that was it. And of course, that risk-based authentication, bringing in more and more contextual risk factors is important, because the more we can determine about what's normal, the less we need to bother the user. And so that's sort of the goal as we go forward with this.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Richard and Josh. Your focus on user interaction and experience was fantastic and really helps maintain that goal of usability. For everyone out there in the audience, you'll see that I've put up yet another poll. This is the last one, okay? So I know your fingers are warmed up. Why don't you go and hit that now? Again, this is your wish list, your easy button. You want good information, so click on your preference and the team at Duo will hand it right to you. Unfortunately, we do not have time for any additional Q&A, but any and all questions that you've sent in via the chat will definitely be answered by Duo after today's event. And in the handout section, reminder, hop into the link there. You'll find a link to the ebook for Duo. And this also is a 5-step guide of how to approach passwordless security. So definitely check that out. And all the handouts are super valuable today, so I will urge you to get them before the end of today's EcoCast. Right now, I also have the second and the third and final $300 Amazon gift card to give away. You do, again, have to be present to win, so let's hope our final winners are indeed still here. Let's give a little drum roll, please. Congratulations to Laura Woods from Texas, as well as Jim Casey from Pennsylvania. Huge congrats to all three of our winners. And just to recap, we already had Juan Ceja from Texas win the first card, Laura Woods from Texas, and Jim Casey from Pennsylvania. Again, we will always reach out about claiming your prize after the webinar, and we do have a $50 gift card for the best questions from each of these two sessions. So thank you to everyone for throwing in your questions. Really lively audience between the polls and the questions today. So it just goes to show, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And speaking of that, and speaking of more wonderful events from the Actual Tech team, if you are on the webinar today and you would like to chat with us about presenting on a future summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast webinar, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I really do want to thank our speakers from Keeper Security and Duo once again for making this EcoCast possible. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And a big special thank you to all of you out in the audience for asking those questions, being involved. I really did enjoy this chat today, as it is something, I do interact with personally, but I find very interesting to see how things are changing. I hope you all have gotten some interesting ideas and tips. And maybe you're leaving feeling, really lit up and ready to take some next steps. Please do. Don't sit on the information forever, because it's ever changing. So take advantage of what you learned today. If you did enjoy your time and you want to check out another upcoming MegaCast, mark your calendars for minimizing RTO, RPO, and RTA, best practices for bulletproof backup and ultra fast recovery. That is Thursday, so tomorrow, March 14th, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.